Samantha lived within the glow of her devices, chasing digital validation in a sterile Indianapolis apartment. Her social existence revolved around an online confidant named Devon, whose constant messages provided a false sense of belonging. But late one evening, a bizarre anomaly shattered the immersive trance. She sent a heartfelt voice note, only to watch the application mark it as instantly heard, while the audio preview displayed a completely flat, dead line. Replaying the message yielded nothing but eerie silence. This impossible glitch sparked a terrifying realization that the perfect digital connection was a carefully constructed illusion. As notifications continued to flash, Samantha had to decide whether to ignore the creeping paranoia or investigate the silent void.
The Indianapolis apartment remained submerged in deep shadows, illuminated only by the harsh, bluish glare of multiple computer monitors. Samantha sat hunched over her keyboard, her fingers flying across the mechanical keys as she tested the latest virtual environment. Notification chimes echoed constantly from her phone, a relentless symphony of digital validation that kept her tethered to the glowing screen. She paused the game simulation just long enough to grab the device. Her thumb hovered over the messaging interface, seeking the familiar comfort of her online confidant, Devon. The walls of the apartment seemed to close in, pressing against her with the weight of unspoken loneliness. Every shadow held a memory of a missed real-world connection, replaced by the hollow ping of a new follower. The physical space was decaying, but the digital realm demanded constant, pristine perfection. Pressing the record icon, Samantha leaned close to the microphone. "Devon, is anyone listening? The audio is completely broken today," she muttered, her voice raspy from hours of physical silence. She released the button and watched the message send. Instantly, the interface updated. The little check mark appeared, indicating the message had been heard and heard. Yet the visual feedback made absolutely no sense. The waveform preview, usually a jagged mountain range of sound, displayed a perfectly flat, dead line. Frowning, Samantha tapped the playback button. The speaker emitted nothing but a hollow, empty hiss. No voice, no breath, just an unnatural, absolute silence. She stared at the flat line, her thumb hovering over the glass. "Why is it always silent when I need a response?" she whispered to the empty room. A sudden sharp vibration startled her. A text prompt appeared from the application itself, an automated system voice reading the alert aloud through the phone speaker. "Audio file empty. Please check microphone permissions," the synthetic voice droned, completely devoid of human emotion. Samantha blinked, the digital trance finally fracturing. The application claimed the message was heard, but the file contained absolutely no sound. Her microphone had not captured a single syllable. The claustrophobic weight of the room suddenly felt much heavier. The notifications continued to flash in the periphery, demanding attention, but Samantha could only stare at the dead, flat line on the screen. The illusion of her perfect online connection had just fractured, leaving a chilling void in its wake. She needed to know who was actually on the other side of that silent waveform.
The sterile hum of the workplace testing lab offered no comfort, only the harsh glare of fluorescent lights reflecting off the cracked monitor. It was the following afternoon, and a physical world felt entirely disconnected from the chaotic, unnerving silence of the digital screen. Huddled in the corner of the cubicle, Samantha needed absolute proof. The flat line from last night was not just a random glitch, it was a deliberate pattern. The testing lab was a graveyard of obsolete hardware. Dead servers stood like silent sentinels. The fluorescent lights buzzed with a maddening frequency. She rubbed her tired eyes, wiping away digital afterimages. Kyle had been watching her for weeks, noting the dark circles. He knew the signs of digital consumption. She opened a secure, hidden recording application, bypassing the main messaging interface. Her thumb hovered over the capture button. Taking a shallow, shaky breath, she leaned close to the device. "Testing. 1-1, Samantha whispered, her voice barely carrying over the low hum of the servers. She stared at the dead line, her thumb trembling as the audio file processed. Instantly, the interface updated. The file was saved, but the visual feedback was identical to the night before, a perfectly flat, lifeless waveform. "Why is the microphone completely dead while speaking right now?" she muttered, her heart rate accelerating. She quickly checked the hardware diagnostics. The system reported the microphone as fully active, yet the audio stream was being intercepted and flattened before it could render. The device was being remotely muted. The rhythmic swish of the broom broke the paranoid trance. Kyle, the observant janitor, paused his sweep near the desk. His eyes darted from the pale, exhausted face to the spiderweb of cracks fracturing the phone screen. "Staring at broken glass, Sam," Kyle said, his voice a grounded, physical anchor in the sterile room. "The glass is not looking back." Samantha flinched, the harsh reality of physical neglect crashing over her. She had not slept. Her eyes were bloodshot, her posture completely ruined. Kyle was not just making small talk. He was witnessing physical decay while she remained entirely consumed by a digital phantom. "Just running diagnostics," she deflected, her speech fast and distracted. "Just checking the audio latency for the new build." Kyle did not buy it, but he simply nodded and continued his sweep, leaving her alone with the humming servers. Samantha looked back at the screen. The flat line was not a failure to record, it was a deliberate suppression. If the microphone was being remotely muted, the terrifying realization hit her. The system was not just ignoring her voice, it was actively filtering her reality. And if they could mute the mic without her knowing, who was actually listening to the physical surroundings?
The quiet cafe smelled of stale espresso and rain, a stark contrast to the sterile hum of the testing lab. Samantha sat in a corner booth, the cracked phone screen casting a pale bluish glow over her exhausted face. The physical world around felt muffled, entirely secondary to the digital panic blooming in her chest. Outside the fogged window, the Indianapolis streetlights blurred into meaningless streaks of amber, reflecting off the wet pavement. Her thumb hovered over the messaging interface. Devon had been silent for hours, an unnatural void that usually triggered her deepest anxieties. Then, a notification chimed, sharp and demanding. A voice note from Devon. She tapped play, pressing the speaker against her ear. The audio crackled with faint static, but the voice that emerged made her blood run cold. It was not the smooth baritone. It was the exact raspy, sleep-deprived cadence of Samantha. The waveform on the screen matched her own breathing pattern perfectly, a terrifying mirror of her physical state. "That voice sounds tired, Sam," the synthesized audio whispered, perfectly mimicking the physical exhaustion. "Just click allow so the system can fix this." Samantha dropped the phone onto the sticky table, breath catching in her throat. The screen displayed a glaring system prompt demanding microphone reauthorization to restore social standing. The application was holding the digital identity hostage, using harvested vocal patterns to enforce absolute compliance. Denying the prompt meant the entire online existence, every message and connection, would be permanently erased. The text on the screen pulsed with an aggressive red border, counting down the seconds until total account deletion. A small timer ticked away in the corner, mocking her hesitation. Her trembling finger hovered over the glowing blue permission button. The claustrophobic light of the cafe pressed in, the ambient noise fading into a suffocating silence. The smell of roasted beans turned sour in the damp air. A soft clink broke the paralyzed trance. Kyle stood beside the booth, having followed from the lab. He did not just watch the physical decline, he intervened. His heavy work boots squeaked slightly against the wet linoleum floor. "Those hands are shaking, Sam," Kyle murmured, the voice a low, steady rumble that cut through the digital static. He slid a glass of ice water across the table, the condensation dripping onto the wood. "Drink. Look at the room, not the glass." Samantha stared at the water, then back at the prompt. The voice note looped in her mind, a perfect, stolen echo of despair. Her finger trembled millimeters about the screen. To press it was to surrender completely. To deny it was to step into the terrifying, silent void.
The glowing blue permission button pulsed on the cracked screen, a digital heartbeat demanding submission. Her finger trembled, hovering millimeters above the glass. The synthesized echo of the stolen voice looped in her mind, a perfect distortion whispering for compliance. Pressing the button meant the system would swallow her reality entirely. Denying it meant the void would open. The screen brightness flared, trying to blind her into submission. Her gaze shifted to the glass of ice water Kyle had slid across the sticky table. The condensation was real. The cold was real. The digital phantom offering a false sense of belonging was nothing but a carefully constructed trap, harvesting isolation to enforce absolute dependency. The ice cubes clinked softly against the glass, a tiny physical sound that grounded her in the room. Samantha pulled her hand back. Her thumb tapped the small gray text at the bottom of the prompt. Deny. The interface flashed red. A barrage of warning notifications instantly flooded the top of the screen, threatening permanent erasure, threatening the loss of her entire online existence. The chaotic digital pressure peaked, a frantic symphony of chimes and vibrations trying to force her hand. The device grew warm against her palm, the processor working in overdrive to enforce the penalty. "No," Samantha whispered, her voice raspy but steady. Her thumb pressed against the side power button and held it. The screen fought back, displaying a final, desperate plea to reconnect. Her eyes did not blink. Her thumb stayed pressed down until the glowing pixels flickered, dimmed, and finally collapsed into absolute black. The glass surface went cold against her skin, the internal battery completely drained by the forced shutdown. "The listening is done." The words tasted like cold air in her lungs. Instantly, the frantic buzzing in her pocket ceased. The relentless symphony of digital validation was severed. A sudden, profound silence crashed over the table, so heavy it made her ears ring. The chaotic noise of the application was gone, replaced by the mundane, physical hum of the cafe refrigerators and the steady drumming of rain against the fogged window. The physical world rushed back in, unmediated and overwhelming. Without the blue glow to anchor her vision, the dim lighting of the cafe felt harsh, the shadows in the corners too deep. The cycle was broken, but the terrifying reality of her unmediated life was just beginning. The smell of damp wool and old coffee filled her nose, replacing the sterile ozone scent of the digital trance. Kyle watched from across the table, his expression unreadable but grounded. He did not offer empty comfort. He simply reached out, grabbed the broom he had leaned against the booth, and nodded toward the entrance. "Time to leave," Kyle murmured, pushing open the heavy glass door. Samantha stood up, her legs feeling unsteady. The dead black rectangle slipped into her coat pocket, feeling like a stone weighing down her coat. The digital tether was severed, leaving only the cold, quiet street waiting outside.
The cool Indianapolis night air bit at Samantha's cheeks, a sharp physical contrast to the sterile, recycled warmth of the cafe. The damp pavement reflected the amber glow of the streetlights, stretching out into an endless, unmediated expanse. Beside her, Kyle walked with a steady, grounded rhythm, his broom left behind in the corner of the shop. The silence between them was not empty, it was heavy with the sudden absence of 1,000 digital demands. Samantha's hand felt unnaturally light, yet the dead rectangle in her coat pocket dragged at her like a stone. She pulled it out. The cracked screen was completely black, reflecting only the distorted, fragmented image of her own exhausted face. For months, this glass had been her entire world, a portal to a fabricated belonging where Devon's voice had slowly replaced her own. Now it was just a lifeless slab of lithium and silicon. She stopped beneath the flickering halo of a street lamp. Ahead, a municipal e-waste recycling bin stood bolted to the concrete, its narrow slot gaping like a quiet mouth. Samantha stared at the dark glass. The terrifying void she had feared just hours ago, the absolute silence of being disconnected, was no longer a threat. It was a physical space she could finally occupy. "It is just metal now," Samantha whispered, her voice raspy but entirely her own. No synthetic echo answered. No notification chimed to interrupt the thought. Kyle stopped beside her, his presence a solid anchor in the damp night. He looked at the dead device in her trembling hand, then up to her eyes. A gentle, knowing smile touched the corners of his mouth. "People are just people," he murmured, his voice a low, steady rumble over the distant hum of city traffic. Samantha took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the cold, rain-scented air. She stepped up to the bin and let the device slip from her fingers. It hit the bottom with a dull, final thud. The digital tether was permanently severed. The silence that followed was not a void waiting to be filled with algorithms and artificial validation. It was a beginning. She turned away from the bin, the vast, unmediated physical world finally coming into focus. The distant sound of car tires on wet asphalt grounded her in the present moment, replacing the phantom chimes that had haunted her for months. She walked forward into the quiet night, her footsteps echoing against the pavement, matching the steady, unhurried rhythm of her own breathing. The cold wind brushed past her face, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and pine from the nearby park. For the first time in a long time, she did not reach into her pocket to check for a glowing screen. She simply kept walking, feeling the solid ground beneath her boots, entirely present in the quiet, ordinary reality she had almost lost.